Notts County Talk. Thank you for joining us on Friday night. As you can see, we're joined by Gab Sutton. Gab, how are we?
I'm very well, thanks, George. Good to meet you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you, mate. We're just going to be talking mainly about Luke Williams' appointment. We've seen, obviously, you've said a few things about him on Twitter. So can you start us off? What would you give a general overview of Luke Williams?
I'm so excited about this appointment, George, for the future of Notts County. Obviously, Ian Birchnell did some really good work last season off the back of Neil Ardley and the possession principles that he sort of implemented and developed. And I feel like Luke Williams can really take that on. And I mean, from what I know of Notts County, you were a little bit inconsistent last season, and maybe that was why you weren't able to put the runs together that Stockport did and Wrexham did, and it was obviously very difficult to win the title last year. But I'm so excited about Luke Williams. When Swindon reached the League One player finally in 14-15, Mark Cooper was the manager, but I think a lot of it, sort of internally and locally, it was quite widely considered that Luke Williams as a coach was very much maybe generously the brains behind the operation in that team, and he stayed on as a coach. He did end up getting the manager's job at Swindon. Didn't quite work out on that occasion. They gave him a 5-year contract. It didn't really work out as a number one, and I think that's probably the one question over him: can he deliver as a number one, having been such an influential figure as a coach? I believe that he will make that step up, partly because he's going into a bigger infrastructure, I suppose, at Notts County, and a better infrastructure because he was working under Lee Power at Swindon, and lots of managers have struggled there. And obviously did some very good work at MK Dons as well, alongside Russ Martin. So really excited about him.
Well, we've just had him on. We're literally filming this 2 hours after we just had our interview with Luke Williams. If you haven't seen that interview, it will be linked in the description below this one. But massively impressed, weren't we, George, with that one?
Yeah.
I think the thing that struck us straight away, Gab, because the bookies had Mike Williamson, the Gateshead manager, as favourite for a long time. They had the York manager at one point. They had Altrincham manager, and absolutely nowhere was Luke Williams. Nowhere. So when he was appointed, obviously the first natural thing to do, if we don't know Luke Williams, I'll be honest, I had very little knowledge of Luke Williams, knew about him very little. Was we looked, as you do, you looked at his win percentage, and Swindon's 26. So that obviously alarmed us because that's pretty low. That's a pretty low win percentage. But like you said, and what he reiterated to us, is that he feels our structure at the club is one that he can thrive under. I think that's what he came, and that's what he said to us. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and it's a good point because, and I think sometimes as an EFL or lower league football follower, you can get sort of very caught up in the quality of the football that some teams play and how exciting they can be to watch. And the ones that Luke Williams has coached at Swindon, and the foundations that he helped played a huge part in laying at MK Dons. They're probably going to go on to build a sort of championship side. I think that's really significant. I think with Swindon, a lot of the side that reached the playoffs in 14-15 was kind of based on players on loan, and then I think they lost Nathan Byrne and maybe Andy Williams that year, and a couple of things happened anyway, and then Mark Cooper left, and they weren't able to replace a lot of the loan players with the same quality, I would say. I do remember watching one game for Swindon. I think it was against Chesterfield in a relegation battle, where there was so many passes sort of inside their own half, and it was almost, Chesterfield just had this deep defensive block, and Chelsea ended up winning 1-0. Unfortunately, if you're a Notts County fan, they did go down that year, but yeah, and I think that's probably what he'll want to avoid, that sense of passing for passing's sake. But I feel like the experiences that he's had and his ability to evolve himself as a coach and find ways of kind of keeping that principle of wanting the ball and wanting to dominate the ball and wanting to control late games that way, but also finding more urgency. I think the experiences he's had is going to be really important in that. And The development of some players at MK Dons, I think, has been fantastic. And as much though I really like the work that Russ Martin did there, I think Luke Williams played a huge part in terms of the tactical ideas that he's brought. And I think that's kind of been the foundation for what they've gone on to do this season, even if Luke Williams wasn't actually the coach when they reached the League One playoffs. So again, I rate him incredibly highly as a coach. And I do feel that this is going to be the season where he comes to the fore, and he's going to go from being someone that's incredibly highly rated in coaching circles to someone that's maybe a bit more known publicly.
Yeah, George, I'm going to let you go on to this. I think you're going to mention the tweet that you got excited
I've got to, yeah. It got me excited. It got a few Notts fans excited. It is actually a reply to a tweet. It says, because you have Luke Williams, one of the best coaches and tactical minds in English football, maybe outside of the elite. Can you expand on that and sort of go into a bit more depth of sort of why you think that?
Because when we signed him, like tongue in cheek, the first reply I saw was we've got the non-league Guardiola.
Well, it looks a bit like Guardiola,
yeah, but then you guys say he's that good tactically.
Yeah, I look at the football that his MK Dons side with Russ Martin played. They had a sort of 3-4-2-1 with a kind of box midfield, and some of the rotations and passages of play were really strong. And he's developed players like Matthew Sorinola, for example, who came through their academy, and he's kind of been a bit of an inverted left wing back for them. He was really exciting, and I think there's some Premier League clubs that were after him, and I think he ended up going to Belgium. But yeah, he's played a huge part in just developing these players, and some of the passages of play at their best was an absolute delight to watch. And although MK the year before didn't actually challenge for promotion, that you could see that they were tantalizingly close to being a sort of top six side. So yeah, I'm really excited about him as a coach, some of the principles that he has in terms of the rotations, in terms of the passages of play. Again, the Swindon side played with so much freedom, so much flair, so much movement. It's always been a delight to watch with him, apart from that one stint, I suppose, as a number one. And I think, again, it's converting the work that he's done brilliantly as a coach into a number one. And I think if he does that, I think he can take Notts County a long, long way.
Yeah, really promising to hear.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say, that he didn't quite get MK Dons, promotion or into the playoffs. Because he does sort of talk about steady progression. It's something that he sort of was quite vocal about, wasn't it, Tom, in the interview that we have just done, about steady progression, not about like lumping, all your eggs in one basket type thing and going for it in one go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that he replaces Ian Birchnell, who by all accounts was quite process driven himself as well, and very much about getting the plan A right. And that, for me, I think is going to be really important for Notts County, because you're up against Wrexham, who are managed by Phil Parkinson, who's a manager whose sides have always been very direct. And I think that Phil Parkinson, for me, he's done incredibly well as an underdog manager or in sort of slightly difficult circumstances. But I've got some reservations about how he'll actually handle having maybe a better caliber of player. Whereas I think Luke Williams as a coach is probably better suited to coaching maybe more elevated sort of styles of football. And of course, that's no guarantee of results. And of course, in the National League, you are going to have to be able to mix it up and grind out results as well. And I'm sure Luke Williams knows that. But I think in terms of sticking to your principles, not panicking as well, if it's getting towards the end of games and you need a goal, sticking to what you're trying to do in terms of building through the thirds and being patient. I think that's going to be really important for Notts County. So I'm glad that you've gone down the coach route and maybe taken a chance on someone who's got an incredible reputation in coaching circles, but just needs to prove himself as a number one in senior football.
Yeah. The National League's a funny one because it was so strong last year. Stockport were very strong. Wrexham are obviously strong. Chesterfield was strong with who they brought in. But it's funny because teams, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, teams will come to Meadow Lane and they'll try to play. And it's the same when they went to Stockport and they went to Wrexham, and they couldn't get anywhere near the box. They couldn't get anywhere near Notts box. Now, I don't watch an awful lot of League One and League Two football, but I'm guessing it's a little bit more competitive than that. Who came recently, George, and just was it Weymouth? Didn't even get a sniff on goal for 95 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you think Luke Williams will? Do you think his style will really batter some teams? Because we saw that last year where we were battering teams, we won 1-0, and it was nervy in the end. Do you think his sides will be clinical? And do you think he will be able to finish teams off? Because that's where we were in a mess last year. We were. Yeah. I alluded to this very quickly in the Luke Williams interview. I put it to Luke Williams. We were 1-0 up against Woking. And every notch I remember this game. 70 minutes. We missed a couple of easy chances. Cruising. 20 minutes to go. No danger. Lost 4-1. Do you think he will be able to rectify that? Because that's where our season was. That was the downfall.
That's a really good question. I think that if I look at the MK Dons side that Luke Williams managed, it was very much a case of creating a high volume of clear-cut chances. And actually, ironically, one of the things that the reasons why MK have pushed on the following season is because they've kept those same principles in place, but they've maybe been a little bit more incisive, a little bit more clinical in the final third, and probably been better at creating clear-cut chances as opposed to the sort of the half ones around the edge of the box. But having said that, I do think that if you build a system that allows you to consistently get into the final third through those patterns of play and those rotations that I've talked about, then the law of averages are that you're going to have a lot of success. And that's where I would see Notts County's season going. I'm sure that Luke Williams will be focused on sort of fine-tuning the details at both ends, because that's his job as a football manager to correct those details. But I don't think it's going to come at the expense of the core principles. And I think it's always going to be about keeping what we've got in terms of building up from the back end and those rotations and passing and all the rest of it. But can we get a little bit better at this or a little bit better at that? So it's never going to be we need to get better at defending the box, so we're going to put more people in the box. It's always going to be about, well, can we maybe recruit a defender that can play out from the back, but is also a little bit more aerially dominant? I think that's going to be his line of thinking. And again, I'm really excited to see how it pans out, because he's a coach I rate, incredibly highly. And I do feel like this is going to be the season where it works for him as a number one.
Hopefully, because I don't know if you've seen, we signed Macaulay Langstaff from Gateshead, 32 goals.
Top scorer in the National League North that season, wasn't he?
And today we announced his strike partner, Sedwin Scott, 24 goals. I think it was 24, 25 goals. We've basically taken the front two of Gateshead, replaced Carl Wootton with the front two. Now, Carl Wootton, fantastic player, really loved him, but he missed an awful lot of chances. So with what you're saying there, with two players that have already played together, I've heard great things. Yeah, I'm excited for those two up front and under Luke Williams.
That's interesting as well, isn't it? Because the MK side that he had played 3-4-2-1, but whether he's actually going to be open to going two up top, that's going to be a really interesting option as well. I know Sedwin Scott, I think, is one who had a really good record at Hebburn Town, I think it was initially, and then he went to Carlisle and didn't quite get the opportunities there, I think timing or whatever else. But then he's since gone back to Gateshead and done really well. So, and Langstaff as well has scored goals. So I think hopefully those two can give that sort of clinical edge, and obviously counterbalance the blow of losing Carl Wootton.
Yeah. Obviously, as Luke Williams comes in, he comes in with his assistant Ryan Harley. Do you know anything on Ryan?
Well, I know Ryan Harley has he played for Exeter for quite a few years, didn't he? And I always thought of him as quite a technical midfielder at the base. And again, I think that's that feeds into what he's probably going to be looking for. He's probably going to be looking for defenders that can play out from the back, goalkeepers that distribute well, wing backs that push high up the pitch, midfielders that are very good at sort of switching the play and keeping things ticking over. I suppose I'd be interested actually just to kind of switch things around a little bit. Do you two feel like this Notts County squad is pretty close, given the work Ian Birchnell did last season, to having a squad that can carry out those sorts of principles?
We were genuinely 3, 4 or 5 ridiculous results away from seriously challenging Stockport. The Woking game I said at home. I went to Aldershot away towards the end of the season. Aldershot, that they were pretty much safe. We lost 3-1. We should have been out of sight at half time. But then second half completely battered. So yeah, I think we're close. Luke Williams said in his first interview, look, this team isn't broken by any means. We're almost there. What do you reckon, George?
Yeah, and I'd agree with you. I think it's just, and it's sort of been discussed as well, hasn't it? There's just a few little things that need to be tweaked here and there. And I think a big thing is just conversion, because we create some fantastic chances. We create plenty of chances in games and we just don't put them away. So it's going to be interesting to see now, obviously, with a partnership that's coming in, a proven partnership, whether that will change.
Yeah, definitely. And there's just one more thing before we let you go, Gab, that I want to ask you about. Sure. We announced about, I think it was 3 or 4 hours ago, Aidan Baldwin signed. MK Dons, I think it was, that he will be leaving. Do you know anything about him? Know much about him?
Well, he's someone that Luke Williams has worked with during his time as Bristol City under-23s coach. So if he's worked with him closely, I think that's probably quite a good indication that he trusts him to fit into this style of play. He's also someone that he signed when he was at MK Dons as well. So he's actually, this is going to be the 3rd time that he's worked with Aidan Baldwin. So it's clearly someone that he trusts. Baldwin hasn't actually had loads of EFL experience under his belt, but I think from a lot of what MK fans saying, he did pretty well for them in a side that was challenging for promotion from League One last season. So I think the fact that he's happy to drop down 2 divisions shows that he's really sort of taken by Luke Williams as a coach and wants to play. I think that's a big thing for a lot of players, because if you think about it, we sometimes look at transfer moves as, why are they moving to that level of football, or why they could play higher? But actually, if you're playing under a coach that you've got a really good relationship with, and if you're playing in a style of football that sort of frees you up and you feel really at home with, that makes a huge difference to your moods, your day-to-day life. And I think sometimes as football fans, we don't always take that aspect of it into account. So I think that's a really good signing for Notts County. And just another thing, I went to Meadow Lane a few times when you were in the EFL, and I do think that stand behind the goal, once you get that place rocking, I do think that it can be a really good atmosphere at times. And I just feel like you look at some of the clubs that are in the Premier League, and you think like Notts County, they've got so much potential, I think, as a club to really push on up the division. So I'm really excited for you, and I think this is potentially a really positive era for the club ahead.
Yeah. I know you're just building our excitement as well, Gab. But we've had a great day as Notts fans. Signing Baldwin, signing Scott. Adam Chickson, who we love, has renewed his contract. So yeah, really, really appreciate you coming on, giving us a bit of extra insight. I'm sure Notts fans will massively appreciate it as well. But you're just building that excitement even more. Thanks for joining us.
And hopefully we can reconvene for an EFL chat next summer.
Hopefully so.
Cheers, Gab. Thanks a lot.
Gab.
All the best to Black and White Army.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.